All right, so we're diving into Dune today.
Yes, we are.
And I know you're probably thinking, oh, giant sandworms, desert planet, all that.
Yeah, the basics.
But we want to go deeper.
Much deeper.
Like, why is this story still so powerful, you know?
Right. Decades later, people are still obsessed.
Exactly.
It's wild.
So one thing that always grabs me is the spice melange.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just valuable. It, like, messes with your mind, right?
Oh, absolutely. It gives you longer life, the ability to see the future.
Whoa.
Even fold space, which is how they travel faster than light.
So it's like the key to everything.
Pretty much.
But it's also addictive, right?
Oh, yeah, and super controlled.
Makes you think, you know, about power in our world, too.
Totally. Like, what happens when the most powerful thing is also, like, a drug?
Who gets to decide? Who controls it?
And at what cost, right?
Exactly.
And that control, it all comes down to who rules Arrakis.
That's the desert planet, right?
Yep.
Where the spice is.
Yeah, the only place you find it.
Harsh place, but super important.
And that's where the Atreides family comes in.
Gugleko, right. The nobleman.
Yep. Known for being fair, a good leader.
But he gets put in charge of Arrakis.
And I gotta say, when I first read that, I was like, is this a good thing or a trap?
Right. Feels like there's got to be more to it.
Oh, there definitely is.
Then there's Lady Jessica.
The Duke's concubine and Paul's mother.
And she's a Bene Gesserit.
Which is a whole other layer of complexity.
They're so mysterious, those Bene Gesserit.
They're fascinating. They have this long-term breeding program.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah, they're trying to create this super being, the Kwisatz Haderach.
With, like, ultimate power.
Exactly.
And they use, what, politics, even religion, to get what they want?
They're master manipulators, incredibly powerful.
Kind of scary, actually.
It makes you think about how far people will go for control, you know?
Especially over something as fundamental as genetics.
Right. Like, who gets to decide the future of humanity?
And poor Paul, stuck in the middle of it all.
He's their pawn, in a way.
But also the heir to this whole noble house.
With his own responsibilities and pressures.
Can't forget about the Harkonnens either.
Oh, the bad guys.
They hate the Atreides family.
They're brutal, power-hungry, the worst of the worst.
And their attack on the Atreides is just savage.
Made even worse by that betrayal from Dr. Yu, their own doctor.
Ugh, that was rough.
It really makes you question who you can trust, right?
Especially when the stakes are so high.
That's a big theme in Dune, actually. Trust and betrayal, all tied to power.
So Duke Leto ends up dead.
And Paul and Jessica have to run for their lives.
Into the deep desert.
A turning point, for sure, especially for Paul.
He goes from this palace life to, like, fighting for survival.
It's in that crucible that he meets the Fremen.
The Fremen. There's something else.
They're amazing. So resilient, they've adapted to the harshest environment imaginable.
I mean, living in the desert, riding those giant sandworms.
It's like they become one with their world.
Their relationship with the sandworms is so interesting, almost spiritual.
It's deeply connected to their whole understanding of the spice. They see it as sacred.
Like a manifestation of the planet's power.
Exactly.
We should definitely talk more about that connection to the environment later.
Absolutely.
But for now, let's get back to Paul. He becomes Muad'Dib among the Fremen, right?
Yeah, falls for Chani, starts having these visions of the future.
It's like the classic hero's journey, but with a Dune twist.
Those visions, they're fueled by the spice. He's becoming something more than just a man.
And the Fremen, they see him as a messiah.
The one who will lead them to freedom, yeah.
It's kind of like when charismatic leaders rise up in real life during a hard time.
Oh, totally. There are so many parallels to history.
But it can be dangerous too, right?
Oh, yeah. When religion and politics get mixed up, things can get messy.
Fanaticism, violence, all that.
Herbert definitely seems to be warning us about the power of belief, especially when a powerful leader is involved.
So is Paul playing into this, or is he genuine?
That's the question that hangs over the whole story.
Like, is he truly a savior, or is he just using everyone?
It's not an easy answer.
And it gets even more complicated as he gains power, unites the Fremen, defeats the Harkonnens.
All with the spice at the center of it all?
This substance that grants incredible power, but can also be used to control and manipulate.
And that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive, looking at the consequences of Paul's victory, the burden of leadership, and the dangers of unchecked power.
You know, last time we were talking about those dangers of, like, religious fervor.
Oh, yeah.
And how it can be manipulated, especially with a leader like Paul.
Yeah, it gets pretty intense as his power grows.
Because he's seen as this Muad'Dib, right?
Yeah.
Fulfilling prophecy, all that.
The Fremen, they believe he's their messiah.
But how much of that is real?
Yeah.
You know, versus him kind of using it to his advantage.
Right, because he does have these incredible abilities from the spice.
So it's hard to tell where the line is
Wow.
between genuine leadership and exploiting people's faith.
And Herbert's really good at exploring that, like, gray area.
Yeah, like maybe Paul starts off wanting to help the Fremen.
But as he gets more powerful...
It's easy to get corrupted, right?
Totally. It's that classic thing, power corrupts.
And the Fremen themselves, they're so devoted.
They've been waiting for their Messiah for generations.
So they're primed for it, ready to believe.
And that makes them vulnerable in a way.
It's like throughout history, you see this pattern.
Oh, absolutely. Charismatic leaders tapping into people's hopes and fears.
Dune is like a warning, almost.
Oh, for sure. It shows how easily faith can be used to manipulate people.
Especially when they're desperate for something better.
We're just looking for a sense of hope. Yeah.
It makes you think we should always be cautious, even with ladders who seem good.
Definitely. Blind faith can be really dangerous.
But it's not just about religious power in Dune, right?
No. Herbert also looks at ecological power.
You mean like control over resources?
Exactly. Especially the spice.
Because Arrakis is brutal, but it has this incredibly valuable substance.
The key to interstellar travel, wealth, everything.
The Fremen have learned to live in balance with it.
But the Empire just wants to exploit it.
And Paul, even though he's with the Fremen,
He still ends up controlling the spice.
it's like that question, who really has the right to a planet's resources?
Is it the people who've always lived there or the ones with the power to take it?
It's so relevant to what's happening in the real world, you know?
Oh, totally. Climate change, exploitation, it's all there in Dune.
The Fremen, they represent a different way, though.
More sustainable, living in harmony with nature.
It makes you wonder if we could learn something from them.
I think we definitely could.
Something else that's fascinating is Paul's prescience.
His ability to see the future.
But it's not always clear, right?
No, it's like he sees glimpses, different paths.
But does knowing the future influence his choices?
That's the big question, free will versus destiny.
Makes you think about the burden of leadership, you know?
If you can see what's coming, are you really in control?
Or are you just playing out a role that's already written?
And if it's all predetermined, are you still responsible for the consequences?
It's like, is Paul even the master of his own fate?
Or is he being manipulated by forces he doesn't understand?
The spice, the Bene Gesserit, maybe even destiny itself.
And it all circles back to that idea of power.
How it can twist even the best intentions.
Even if you start off wanting to do good, the more power you have.
The harder it is to stay true to yourself.
Still what you really want, yeah.
So Dune is a warning, but it also offers like a glimmer of hope, right?
I think so, yeah. The Fremen show us that it as possible to live differently.
To resist, to adapt, to find a better way.
Even when things seem impossible.
So it's not just about the dangers of power, but about the possibility for change.
For making different choices, creating a better future.
Even in the face of overwhelming odds.
Exactly. That resilience, that's a powerful message.
I gotta say, going through all this Dune stuff,
It's a lot, right?
it really makes you think, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just a fun space adventure.
Herbert was dealing with some heavy stuff.
About humanity, our good side, our bad side.
Our potential for, like, creation anti-destruction.
And Arrakis itself, that planet is so central to it all.
Yeah, it's more than just a setting. It's almost a character.
Those harsh deserts, the giant sandworms.
And of course, the spice connecting everything.
It shapes everyone who ends up there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Their destinies are tied to Arrakis.
And the Fremen, they get it, you know?
Mm.
They've adapted to this crazy place.
They've learned to live with it, not just fight against it.
Respect for the environment, the sandworms.
Their whole culture is built around that balance.
It's like they understand power comes from understanding, not just dominating.
Makes the Empire look even worse, just taking what they want.
Stripping the planet, not caring about the consequences.
And it raises that question, who has the right to a planet's resources?
The people who've always been there, or the ones with the biggest guns?
That's something we're dealing with in our own world, too.
Big time. Climate change, exploitation, it's all connected. I mean, it's
Right.
like Herbert saw the future or something.
He was definitely ahead of his time, that's for sure.
But Dune isn't just doom and gloom, right?
No, there's hope, too.
The Fremen, they represent a different way.
A more sustainable way, yeah.
Living in harmony, not just taking.
It makes you wonder, what could we learn from them?
You know, another thing that's always stuck with me is Paul.
Our hero, or is he?
He starts out fighting for a good cause.
But it gets murky as he gets more powerful.
Can you really be a good guy when you're in control of everything?
That's what makes Dune so complex.
It's not black and white, good versus evil.
Paul's flawed. He makes mistakes.
He's a hero who could easily become a tyrant.
Herbert doesn't let us off easy. He makes us confront that
Leadership isn't simple.
it's about tough choices, uncertainty.
And sometimes the hardest thing is resisting that pull of power.
No matter how good your intentions are.
Because it can corrupt you, change you.
But the Fremen, they give us hope, right?
That even in a harsh place like Arrakis,
There's still room for resilience, for adaptation,
for finding a better path.
for challenging those in power, demanding something better.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Dune,
It's been quite a journey.
we've covered so much. Power, religion, the environment.
The choices we make, the consequences that follow.
But ultimately, it's about asking ourselves, what will we do?
With the power we have, the choices we face,
How will we shape our own future?
will we learn from the mistakes of the past?
Will we strive for that balance, that harmony the Fremen show us?
These are big questions, but Dune makes us confront them.
And that's why it's still so powerful, so relevant today.
A story that stays with you long after you finish it.
So keep thinking, keep questioning, keep exploring.
And thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.